Now to the government shutdown watch part. What is this, Moshe? Like part 100?
Well, 100 overall this go around. I think this is our fourth near shutdown in just the past 6 months, Jill.
So Democratic and Republican congressional leaders, they say they are optimistic that they will avert a government shutdown that's set to start this weekend. And it follows a White House meeting hosted by President Biden, in which lawmakers also stepped up pressure on Speaker Mike Johnson to allow a vote on Ukraine aid to go forward. The split Congress has until Saturday, just after midnight, to fund the Departments of Veterans Affairs, Transportation, Agriculture, Energy, and several other agencies that have been operating on temporary budget extensions since September 30th. The funding for the rest of the federal government expires after March 8th. Johnson, who is the Republican House Speaker, reportedly made it clear that he wants to avoid a government shutdown. This was during a private Tuesday meeting with President Biden and other congressional leaders. At least this is according to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Of course, he is a Democrat. The main holdup has been in the Republican-led House, where Johnson is managing a rowdy House GOP conference that has taken a really hard line on deficits and is also increasingly skeptical of foreign aid, especially aid for Ukraine. The Democratic-controlled Senate has been ready for months to move forward with the budget. Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell telling reporters at the Capitol that the meeting focused mainly on keeping the government open. He said, quote, which I think we can all agree on. And Schumer said he does not think that the current differences are insurmountable.
Yeah, so still a split here, but some positive language coming out of that White House meeting on Tuesday. Schumer believes there's another short-term spending patch to keep the government open. This is what they've done a few times now, to give them more time for a full year bill. The funny thing is, Jill, we're about 6 months into the fiscal year, and we don't have a full year bill yet because of all these short-term bills. The thing with Johnson, he's in a very difficult spot with his party. Remember, he was sort of the mistaken Speaker of the House after McCarthy was pushed out. It took them a while to get to him. And he has a very hardcore group of right-wing conservatives who don't mind shutting down the government here. They want to see even more spending cuts. But Johnson is under pressure not only from Democrats, not only from the White House, but from his fellow Republicans in the Senate to say, dude, keep the government open. This is not a good look in an election year. So he must now sell a deal to his House conference of Republicans. Now, the thing is, it's actually not that complicated. They can easily pass this through the House. But what it does mean is Johnson has to put it on the floor, and the majority of votes will come from Democrats. So he'll be seen as working with Democrats, which to the right-wingers is not okay, and is the same issue that brought down his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy. Remember, he worked with Democrats to keep something open, and they said, oh no, and a group of them, joined by all the Democrats, eventually pushed him out as Speaker. So Johnson is very much threatening his continued role as Speaker here every time he potentially works with Democrats. And then there is Ukraine, as you mentioned. There is the $95 billion aid package that includes Ukraine, includes Taiwan, includes humanitarian aid to the Palestinians, includes military aid to the Israelis. A lot of pressure on Johnson to get that through. The vast majority of the Senate approves it, and the majority of the House approves it, but not the vast majority of Republicans in the House. And again, that's the issue. It can pass the House, but it would get a lot of votes from Democrats. So Johnson, again, under pressure on Ukraine. Schumer describing the meeting in the White House today as one of the most intense he's ever had in the Oval Office. Schumer says he told Speaker Johnson he would regret it for the rest of his life if he blocked assistance to Ukraine here. A lot of pressure here from Chuck Schumer, who incidentally has just returned from Ukraine. Ukraine feeling a lot of pressure, a lot of concern that when the aid has dried up from the U.S., that they're going to have a very difficult time holding off the Russians. Jill, have you ever been told you got to do something or you'll regret it for the rest of your life?
It's so dramatic, Chuck Schumer. Like,
Schumer,
do they
what do
even
you got
know
on
each other?
Johnson?
I mean, I feel like they probably met a few times at this point.
Listen, Schumer runs the Senate right now. Johnson runs the House. They have to work together on certain things. So when you hear Chuck Schumer, who runs the other body, say you're going to regret it for the rest of your life if you don't do this, maybe you take that seriously.
Another reason Mike Johnson is just like, why did I take this? Like, why did I run for this? Who wants this?
Yeah.
It is the most thankless position, I think, in government.
Yeah, I mean, John Boehner would tell him that. Paul Ryan would tell him that. Kevin McCarthy would tell him that. You go back to the last few speakers, and they're like, "How's it running? How's it running that Republican caucus with that like dozen or so extreme right Republicans who make your life hell and don't care about legislating? They just care about kind of pushing their agenda." And so Johnson's inherited them, and he was just kind of a quiet Republican congressman from Louisiana, and now he has to manage this, get yelled at by Chuck Schumer in the White House. And we'll see how it goes. Johnson is learning on the fly here. His staff is learning on the fly. And so he's had a difficult go at it. And there are certainly a lot of critics. This is difficult on a good day to manage such a thin majority and such a difficult caucus. And Johnson's learning about how to do this literally day by day.